Hey guys, it's Mr. White here with the second set of video notes in our supply and demand lecture series. Now we're talking all about the other side of this equation. We're talking about supply. So if you haven't watched the videos about demand, please go back and watch those two videos about demand because I think they'll help you improve your understanding of what we're about to get into right now. So in the last set of videos, we talked about classmates selling candy bars out of their backpack. Now, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of that classmate. Imagine that you went and bought a 8-pack of candy bars for $4 at the grocery store. So, $4 divided by 8 candy bars, they're costing you 50 cents a piece essentially. Now, you like candy bars, but you're thinking of selling some of the candy bars to your classmates. Now, the following is a table of what you'd be willing to sell at different prices. So because you don't want to lose money, you're not going to sell any candy bars for 25 cents. As a matter of fact, you're not even going to enter the market for selling candy bars until 50 cents because that's your cost, right? You had to pay 50 cents. So maybe if people are willing to give you 50 cents, you would take 2 candy bars and maybe sell them to your 2 friends for 50 cents a piece. Now, if you could sell the candy bars for 75 cents, well, you would go ahead and sell 4 of them because now you're making money. If people would give you $1 for candy bars, you would sell 6 of them. And if people are going nuts for chocolate and they'll give you $1.25 for a chocolate bar, you would go ahead and sell all 8 of them. So this is what we would call a supply schedule. If you watch the video about demand, you know what a demand schedule is. A supply schedule is the same thing, but as you guessed, it's for supply. Just like with the demand schedule, we can plot out that supply schedule on an X and Y axis and we can create ourselves a curve. You guessed it, it's the supply curve. So you might want to go ahead and do this in your own notebook. Go ahead and create an X and Y axis, and just like before, we're always going to put price on the Y and quantity down on the X axis. If you want, go ahead and list out these prices, and you can draw this supply schedule right next to it with all of our quantities. So if you need to, go ahead and pause the video right here. Okay, so if you've plotted out your graph, this is what you would get. At 25 cents, we sell 0. At 50 cents, we're going to sell 2 bars. At 75 cents, we're going to sell 4. At $1, we'll sell 6. And at $1.25, we would sell 8 candy bars. So these dots just represent an X and Y coordinate. Same thing with our demand curve. If we string them all together, we're going to create our supply curve. Now, just like with demand, the supply curve depends on the law of supply. The difference is that the supply curve always has a positive slope. Now, this is because there's a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. And just like with our demand curve, supply curves are derived from linear functions, y equals mx plus b. So if you're a math person, that should totally make sense to you. If you're not a math person, don't start freaking out. It's not really that important that you know that. So before we get too much further into graphs and numbers, I think we should break this down in real people talk. What is supply? Okay, supply just refers to all the goods and services that producers are willing and able to create at various market prices. Okay, that's all it is. So in a market economy, producers are motivated to do this because they want to earn a profit. Okay, now profit is really important in a market economy. You might remember that when we talked about the economic philosophers and the different economic systems, we referred to that guy Adam Smith, who said that it's not from the benevolence of the butcher, the baker, or the brewer that we expect our dinner, but their regard to their own self-interest. In other words, it's not because they're generous that they make food for us. They make food for us because they want to make money for themselves. And the extra money that you get to keep from being a producer is what's called your profit. Now, once again, this is just a little bit of maybe extra information, but if you're a kind of a math person, this might make a little bit more sense to you. In mathematical terms, profit is equal to total revenue minus the total cost of production. Now, if you don't know what this word revenue means, revenue just means all the money that you bring in from operating your business. And total cost of production is exactly what it sounds like. How much does it cost you to operate your business? How much does it cost to pay your workers and to pay to keep electricity in your building that you run, to produce all your goods and services with resources and so forth? Now, total revenue is just equal to the price that you sell your goods at times the quantity of goods that you sell. So if you sell your goods for $1 a piece and you sell 100 goods, you made $100. That's your total revenue. So this stands to reason then that businesses can increase their total revenue and their total profit By producing more goods at a higher price. Okay, so hopefully I didn't lose you just now. Basically, all I'm saying here, guys, is that producers make more money if they sell things at a higher price, and they make less money if they sell things at a lower price. We know that producers are only producing because they want to make more money, so it makes sense that they would rather charge a high price than a low price. So this brings us to the law of supply, and it's going to sound a lot like the law of demand. The law of supply, it's not a law of nature like gravity, but it just says that a change in the price of a good or a service will cause a change to the quantity supplied for that good or a service. So once again, you'll notice that we're just saying a change of price causes a change of quantity supplied. This is really important for you to remember. In other words, there's a relationship between price and quantity supplied. This time it's a direct relationship. Last time it was an inverse relationship. So that means that when the price is high, producers create more. Price goes up, quantity supplied goes up. When the price is low, producers create less. When the price goes down, quantity supplied goes down. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, Mr. White, I don't know about this. If I was running my own business, I would produce everything at a really low price, and that way I'd sell a whole lot more stuff. So I don't think this law of supply really makes sense. Well, here's why the law of supply makes sense. Let me try to break down the logic. As a producer, you have choices about what you can produce with your scarce resources. Now, you might be having a flashback to that very first lecture. Choices and scarce resources, guys, this is the very basis of economics. And you may remember that scarce means you don't have an unlimited supply. So you don't have an unlimited supply of time, and you don't have an unlimited supply of money. So that means you face trade-offs and opportunity costs when you make choices about how to use your time and how to use your money. So when we think about the time it takes to go to the grocery store and buy candy bars and the amount of money it takes to go to the grocery store and buy candy bars, you're using some of your scarce resources to pursue this goal of selling candy bars. You could be doing something else with your money and your time. So the benefit you get from selling candy bars ultimately determines how much your money and time is going to go towards selling candy bars, right? If the benefit you get is worth it, then you're going to devote more resources to that activity. So in other words, if your classmates are willing to give you a lot of money for selling candy bars, you're going to spend a lot of time and money going to get more candy bars every day to sell to your classmates. If they're not willing to give you very much money, why would you spend your time and money to do all that work to get the candy bars to sell to your classmates? It just doesn't make sense. You would spend your time and money doing something else. And so that's why at a high price, producers will produce more, and at a low price, they produce less. So we can take the amount that a producer is willing and able to create at different market prices and make it into a supply schedule like we saw back at the beginning of this presentation. And just like we said in the demand lecture, the sum of all producers in a market creates the market supply schedule. Okay? Now, let's say that after a couple days of selling candy bars or a couple weeks of selling candy bars in class, two of your other classmates decided they're going to start selling candy too. So now it's not just you selling candy, now you and two others are selling candy. And so if we put together all of your different quantities supplied, we can make what's called a market supply schedule. So just like last time, we're just going to add everything together. So your quantity supplied plus producer one, or sorry, plus producer two, I should say, plus producer three equals the market supply. Okay, so 2 plus 1 plus 0 equals 3. 4 plus 3 plus 1 equals 8, and so forth. That's how we get our market supply schedule over here. Just like with demand, once we have our market supply schedule, we can graph that. So I highly encourage you to pause the video right here, draw this out in your notes, and go ahead and make your market supply curve. Okay, so at 25 cents, the market supplies 1 candy bar. At 50 cents, the market will supply 3 candy bars. At 75 cents, you'll find 8 candy bars for sale. At $1, you will see 16 candy bars for sale. And at $1.25, we're up to our ears in candy bars. There are 25 candy bars for sale. So once we've got these dots, you can already see our supply curve taking shape. We'll just string them together, and we've got our market supply curve. Now there are some key assumptions that we're making with this market supply curve and with every supply curve, okay? These are those ceteris paribus assumptions. Remember that the supply curve assumes that price is the only thing we care about when it comes to quantity supplied. Price is the only thing that affects quantity supplied. And one other thing you got to keep in mind is that our supply curve should always slope upward. Just like we said with demand, we say demand to the sand. Here we can say supply up to the sky. If the price changes, all we do is move from one point to another along the supply curve. We can do a northeastern move or a southwestern move, I guess you could say. So let's assume that the market price of candy bars is 75 cents. Okay, at 75 cents, our quantity supplied is 8. But if the price were to go up to $1.25, in other words, if all of a sudden people started being willing and able to pay $1.25 for a candy bar, we would see our quantity supplied go up to 25. And so as you can see, we're having movement along our supply curve. Now, of course, you're saying to yourself, but Mr. White, you said there were those non-price things that change demand, the non-price determinants. Are there any of those for supply? Because it doesn't seem like price should be the only thing that determines how much is produced. Well, you are absolutely right, guys. In the real world, price is not the only thing that influences supply. And just like with demand, anything other than the price that changes supply is called a determinant of supply, right? So anything that makes it possible to increase or decrease production without changing the price is a determinant of supply. And I think we've all just gone through one of those non-price determinants of supply, the coronavirus, right? With the coronavirus, it affected a lot of businesses. There were businesses that had to close down. For example, what happened to the supply of restaurant meals during the lockdown? Well, it went way down. There were not as many restaurant meals being provided, not because of the price, but because of the fact that businesses had to close due to a pandemic. So determinants cause a change to the quantity supplied at every possible price level. And this is reflected as a shift in our supply curve. So once again, we can say, if anything other than the price changes, shift happens. Okay, so let's get back to our little scenario here. Okay, let's just say that 1 week after you start competing with those two classmates to sell candy bars, that second student got a schedule change. So student number 2 got a schedule change. Now there's only 2 sellers of candy bars in your class. So this is what we're going to see now for our market supply. Once again, we're just going to add up your quantity supplied plus that third student's quantity supplied. And so what we're going to notice here is that at every possible price in the market, the quantity supplied on a market level has gone down. You see, the old market supply is shown right here, and this is our new market supply. Okay, before we used to have 1 candy bar for sale because remember, student number 2 was actually willing to sell a candy bar at 25 cents, but now it's just you and producer number 3, and neither one of y'all are selling at 25 cents. So now there's no candy bars for sale for 25 cents anymore. At 50 cents, the quantity supplied for the market used to be 3, but now it's 2. At 75 cents, we used to have a market supply of 8, but now we only have 5. At $1, we used to have 16, but now we only have 9. And at even $1.25, that really high price, we only have 13 candy bars for sale because there aren't as many sellers in the market. So once again, we can graph that. Go back to that graph that you drew earlier and go ahead and add our new market supply. So this was our original market supply curve here. So if you need to, go ahead and pause the video, plot out our new market supply curve, and just see what happens. So for our new market supply curve, you can see here at 25 cents, we're not going to be providing anything. We're to the left, right? We're at 0. At 50 cents, we're only going to supply 2. We used to supply 3. At 75 cents, we're only doing 5. We used to have 8. At $1, we're only doing 9. And at $1.25, we're only doing 13. Now, you'll notice I threw this little blue arrow in here. What's happened is that we've actually shifted our supply curve to the left. Now, I know that might be hard to see. It kind of seems like the new supply curve we drew is above the old supply curve. But I want you to keep in mind, guys, demand and supply curves only shift left or right. In this case, our new curve is physically to the left of the original. And anytime we shift our curve to the left, that's considered a decrease of supply. That might be a little bit hard on your brain just because it looks like it's above, but just keep in mind we only go left or right. If it's to the left, it's a decrease, and that's just because of the fact that we record quantity down here on the x-axis, and you may have noticed on the x-axis The numbers get smaller as you move to the left, so things get smaller as they move to the left. Okay, let's jump back to that scenario, and I'm going to throw another curveball in this one, okay? It's your lucky day. The candy bar 8-packs that you used to buy for $4 are now on sale for only $2 each. That means you can afford to purchase more candy bars to sell to your classmates. You know, you walked in the store with $4, you thought you were going to get one 8-pack, you walked out of that store with two 8-packs. But your classmate gets the same deal. So now you're both going to supply more at every possible price. You can see that you used to supply 0 at 25 cents and your classmate also used to supply 0 at 25 cents, but now you're each able to actually supply. So you can see that now our new market supply at every possible price is greater than the old market supply. It's not because of the fact that you're charging a different price for your candy bars, it's because the grocery store had a sale. Your input cost or your cost of doing business went down. And so when the cost of doing business goes down, the supply goes up. All right, guys, so once again, I encourage you to go ahead and try to graph this, pause the video if you need to, plot these out and see what happens. Okay, so here's our old market supply curve. We didn't supply any at 25 cents, and you can see what we were supplying at the other prices. But now, because we have cheaper inputs, in other words, it's cheaper to do business, we can supply more at every possible price. So at 25 cents, now we're supplying 4. At 50 cents, now we're supplying 8. 75 cents, we do 12. $1, we're doing 17. And at $1.25, there are 22 candy bars for sale. String those together, and we've got our new supply curve. So you'll notice that this is a rightward shift of supply. An increase of supply, just like an increase of demand, is always shown by a shift to the right, and once again, it's because we measure quantity down along the x-axis. Okay guys, that's it for this video. Make sure you watch supply video number 2.